Hey, my name is Martin Hauck, and you're listening to From a People Perspective. It's a podcast for HR, recruitment, and operations professionals. If you're looking for a little bit more, you can check out the community at thepeoplegroup.com. If you're a business owner, or if you're an HR person or a recruiter and you need a little bit of extra support, we've also got a fractional consultancy called Purple Umbrella. You can check us out at purpleumbrella.co.
Okay, so here's the thing. So you've got John Wick, you've got Harry Potter. If they were to battle each other, right? And here's my problem with Harry Potter. I love Harry Potter. Books are amazing. But I always wondered when you see like Voldemort and Harry Potter and they're just fighting it out with the wands. I'm like, okay, what's happening here? You're just seeing two wands, like their little force hit each other. And I'm like, this really isn't like action driven. And they're like, and they're like, getting weak, and it just kind of cracks me up because I'm just always wondering. It's not like John Wick where it's very like kick in the face. Okay, that hurt, right? Like that's very tangible, right? The wands aren't tangible.
Yeah. They need, and I mean, I think I'd like to see John Wick versus Voldemort. I think that would be an interesting thing.
Yeah, yes,
right.
I do too.
I imagine Voldemort would just crush him because of the magic side of things. But if you take away magic, then Harry Potter and Voldemort are just two random weirdos.
Yeah, but John Wick's got the good soul, right? And like you're saying, like he's the good guy. Like I feel like he'd have some sort of trick. You can't kill John Wick. You just can't. Like
that's
literally.
True.
I don't think it's possible.
Yeah, it's true. Hilary, thanks for doing the podcast today. So you are the Chief People and Talent Officer at Tribe Wellness Sales, and Correct. You're also the Operations Advisor for Rare Compute, which is super interesting. But scrolling through your profile, scroll. It's talent. You were true blue. There's only like one moment where you're not doing anything in talent. And you know what I'm going to say?
I still actually was.
You're a freelance writer for National Geographic, which is so cool. I have so many questions about that.
I'm one of those people, like, if you want something done, ask a busy person. And I won't show you my office. Like I'm building a buffet, like cabinet for my art supplies, and I have paintings lying here. I've got like a book I'm trying to finish. So I started writing for National Geographic because I'm an author, and I have 3 middle grade novels out. Came back in first one, I think came back. I can't even remember. Came back around 2012, 2011, whatever. Anyway, so they got published, and Rick Riordan, who wrote Percy Jackson and The Lightning Thief, those phenomenal books, which became movies, like blurbed my books, which was a huge, phenomenal honor. His kids read them. I was like, oh my God, this is really cool. We actually work with this, him and I have the same literary agency. So that helped. But it was one of those situations where doing that led to so much more cool things. So I wrote the 3 books. Then they got published in France by Albin Michel, a French publisher. Then Penguin Random House picked up the ebook versions. And then I got invited to the UAE 2 times. First for their children's book festival in Sharjah, and then their international book festival also in Sharjah, where like Dan Brown was the keynote speaker. And it was just, it was a huge deal. I was interviewed by Al Jazeera TV, which was really, really cool. Just to be, I've never been interviewed on TV, so it was very, very cool. And I got to go around to all these schools in the UAE and talk to all the kids. I spoke at Disney World, which was really amazing. And that was my first actual like big speaking thing. And it was so funny because my agent said, oh, it's going to be short. You're going to be, I thought they said, it was my publisher actually, I thought they said it was going to be like 45 people, and it was 450 people. So, and I was the most scared rabbit, public speaker you can imagine. And like kind of that moment kind of shifted it for me because, you kind of realize like, cause it was very quick and I just kind of just started talking, and I probably sounded like an idiot, but it kind of was like, okay, I did it. It's done. It's out there. Nobody booed me. Nobody threw tomatoes, right? Nobody like yawned, at least that I could tell. So it worked out great. And I've just been kind of doing that ever since. And so, yeah, so I'm the chief people officer at Tribe Wellness, which is sales consulting. So it's all for health and wellness brands.
Yeah.
Great company. And then I'm also the operations advisor for Rare Compute. And again, that was one of those things where it kind of weaves in like your whole thing. So I have a rare disease called Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, and I had gotten my whole genome done and all of that good stuff.
Oh, wow.
And I actually went through like every thread of that genome to find the variant that was causing my EDS, which is called TNXP. And it's very rare. I think there's like, I want to say like 56 diagnosed cases of it. I'm sure there's more and people just don't know it.
Yeah.
But long story short, I started looking for anyone who might have what I have. And I actually stumbled across someone on LinkedIn. I literally just put in
Classic
hashtag
recruiter move. Classic recruiter
yeah,
move.
right. Oh, I can find anything. Hashtag TNXB. And this guy, John Marlowe, popped up, and I reached out to him and I said, hey, I'm like you, and I don't know anyone else like us. And I just wanted to say hi, and, what an experience this whole health journey has been, and what a nightmare on many levels. And, he immediately called me. He sent me a text and then he called me, which was amazing. And him and I started talking. He got me involved with Stanford's Research for the People project because I am an AI enthusiast, a very early adopter of AI. And I worked on the Stanford Research for the People project, which I was creating prompts for doctors, clinicians, researchers, et cetera, that you would ask AI. So what would a patient ask? What might a doctor ask? What might a researcher ask about Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, right? There's like 13 different types. It's just one of those weird things that I think a lot more people have it than is realized. And it's just one of those crazy things. Everybody's a little bit different. And long story short, so I got involved with that. I did this whole big like database of prompts. It was just a really rewarding experience. I met a lot of fantastic people. And that's how I got involved in Rare Compute, which is a decentralized biotech platform. And basically, we're out to solve rare diseases. We're about finding cures, finding therapies, finding cures for cancer and therapies for cancer patients. And it all has to do with tokenized compute, AI, and being that kind of really attainable decentralized platform, or you can. So like think about it like this. There was, a project like basically helping cure sickle cell disease, right? Which is horrible. It's a horrible, horrible thing. And it worked, right? It worked. But people who got this cure, I don't know, honestly, don't know the numbers of how many in the study that this happened to. Their sickle cell went away, but then they all got leukemia. And that is mind boggling. And sometimes I think to myself, well, which is worse, right? Because, which has a better chance and a better quality of life. But at the same token, right? So let's say what they could do with this platform is find out, like model out what the changes, if they did this to, a protein in a gene, right? Like what the changes would be and what the repercussions could be, right? So maybe they could have seen, hey, this is going to cause this to happen, which could cause cancer, right?
Yeah.
Or something else, right? So it's really about modeling that out and kind of almost like seeing the future. And, there's a lot of healthcare organizations that are looking to do this and really looking to develop cures. And AI is a huge piece of that. We
Yeah.
can talk about AI in recruiting or talent acquisition or HR or any other industry all day long and promote like, oh, the negative aspects of it. But the positive aspects, if you're saving lives, like, come on,
Yeah.
then it's worth it, right? Then it's
Yeah.
worth it. And so I'm involved with them. Actually, I've been meeting with them after this. They're brilliant people. They're lovely people. I feel like I'm the dumbest person there. But they're amazing, right? Yeah, like they all come from like Stanford and Berkeley, and I come from University of Kansas. You're welcome. And and they're just lovely people. And so there's going to be a foundation, a for-profit, and I'm just thrilled to be a part of it.
Helping them all.
So what we were talking about with AI, I see online a lot of people, it's that sentiment, AI is rejecting me. Like it's set up that, that AI is just rejecting people blanketly. That's what I think a lot of candidates think, but what they don't realize, that's not what's happening, right? For several reasons, right? You can set up your system depending on your system, right? First of all, there's lots of systems that have no AI implementation, like there's no AI, right? And I think a lot of candidates who aren't in talent acquisition assume that suddenly every ATS has AI. It doesn't.
Yeah.
There's lots of old. Yeah.
Sorry, can you talk about that myth a little bit, just in terms of like, even before AI, like there was just like, oh, I gotta pump keywords into my resume, otherwise like I'm not going to the top. Like, I've been in recruitment for 12 years. You've been in recruitment as well for a ton of time. Have you really ever seen a tool that even has like a good version of like just filtering candidates up to the top for you? Like, oh, this is the one with the most keywords. Like, that's not a thing. It's just becoming a thing right
it is
now.
not. That's a thing. That's a thing. It's not a thing, right?
Yeah.
I think for so long, like I think candidates feel like there's this kind of shady thing going on, where they're getting dumped, right, rejected by the ATS. When really, here's the thing, like applications have grown exponentially than, let's say, what they were 5 years ago, right? Like, so when you put up a role and you get, let's say 300 applicants, I remember being wowed. I'd be like, holy crap, that's a lot of people who are applied for this. Like, we are busting at the seams with resumes. Nowadays, you put the same job up for a week and you have 1,000 resumes, and you're like, holy shit, what am I going to do?
Yeah.
How am I going to get through all this? And, so I use Team Taylor, love it. Love the system. And what they do, they don't reject anyone based on resume keywords, nothing like that. What they do is they will push someone up who looks like, just from what's on the job description, could be a potentially good fit. So they are showcasing a couple candidates that might be, wow, okay, they could be a really good fit for your job. Is it always accurate? No, it's AI, right? It's not always going to be accurate, but they're saying, hey, take a look at this person because something they said on their resume is, very succinctly resonates with something in that job description, right? So, and it is on the onus of recruiters to actually go through those and make sure they're correct. Like, you're not a recruiter if you're just pushing paper, if you're throwing up candidates that make it to a top of a funnel at a hiring manager. It's not recruiting, right? Your job is to actually look at their profile, go through it, look at their LinkedIn, look at the answers to whatever application questions are on there, and make the decision, right? And the thing is that a lot of ATS systems have no AI in them, or if they're just coming out with it now or have come out with it, let's say in the last year, that it is an additional cost to the company to pay for that add-on, right? Like Team Taylor, it all comes out of the box, which is fantastic.
Oh,
like
nice.
they just came out. Yeah, it's all included, first of all. Thank you. But they just came out with that thing we were talking about, right? The shiny new thing where people aren't looking in their database at the candidates they already have, right?
Yeah.
This will, they do sprints every 6 months, which I find amazing, because most ATSs, you're lucky if you get, a couple updates every 6 months or every year.
Yeah.
So
lucky.
long story short, what they have now is it will go through your database and say, hey, look at these candidates. They come up as matches for the role you just posted. Brilliant.
Yeah.
Thank you. That
Yeah.
is what AI should be doing,
Yeah.
right? But yeah, candidates kind of have that myth that every company is using AI, when I would say probably not even half are
Yeah.
using AI.
Not even using AI. Like, for like, if we rewind 5 years before the whole chat GPT thing, they were still like, candidates were still assuming that there was this like nefarious machine behind the scenes, just like kicking out your resume because
Yes.
you didn't have enough words. And you've seen those resumes that are just like, literally every square inch of the page is just stuffed with keywords, and you're like, this
Yes.
isn't
I've
something a
seen them
human
where
can
they
read.
put a paragraph at the bottom of the resume that is just
Yeah.
keywords.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this does nothing. This is just word salad, right?
Yeah. Word
It's
salad.
not. Yeah, exactly. And it just isn't. It isn't something that's really a thing. And it's funny though. Like, I've seen all the posts about fake jobs, fake jobs, fake jobs. I'm like, why am I seeing this so much? Where is this coming from? Because I'm certainly not posting fake jobs. I don't work with any company that's ever posted a fake job. And I'm like, why are they thinking it's fake? Right.
Yeah.
And the sentiment is, I'm not hearing back. A recruiter talked to me and then ghosted me. Okay, that's just a shitty recruiter. Let's be
Yeah.
honest.
Yeah.
But the other spectrum of that is these evergreen job postings. It is a long, old, and dirty practice. I've never done it. I don't agree with it. And I think that's what a lot of these companies are doing, where, people are thinking it's a fake job post. They're not wrong. It is a fake job post. It's not real. They don't have
Yeah,
an actual job
that's
for you.
very real. Fake jobs are like, that's a very simple, like, that's a fact. John Wick and Harry Potter, they're always playing at some point in the US. The other fact, number 2, fake jobs are real. Like, it
They're real and they're real fake.
they're
Like,
super fake.
yeah, and to me, it's just an unethical practice, because you're, having someone fill out the application, having someone fill out application questions. That's a big thing now, where you see lots of application questions. Please stop doing that. 2 or 3 is fine. Don't make a candidate who doesn't even know you and you don't know them take 45 minutes to fill out a job application. That's just stupid. You can find out that information, ask 3 pointed questions, done. That's enough, right?
Can I get your take on this as an alternative?
Mm-hmm.
Is like, if you don't see a job that you like but you're interested in us, like the open bucket. Like, you've got the postings. I've seen some companies do this where it's like,
Yeah.
here's all the jobs
Yeah.
we're hiring for. And at the end is like, don't see what you like, just click here. And this is
Yes.
the alternative to like making it look like you've got all these jobs and all these different
Yeah.
departments you're hiring for, and like 3 are actually real out of the 10.
Yeah, and a
Is
lot of
that a fair
ATSs have
solution?
that, like, where you can connect with a company even if you don't see the role,
Yeah.
which I think is great. I know Team Taylor does that as well, and a bunch of other ones. But also, and I told you, I posted on these evergreen roles, and that we literally need to kill them and bury them, right before you and I, like, we need to, like, wear a red dress and jump on their grave. Like, they're just terrible practice. But is that's just it. Just be transparent. And
Yeah.
and if you're going to, pipeline resumes for future roles, say that very clearly and
Yes.
say, we want great talent. We do not have this role open, but we know this is something we're going to be hiring in the future, or this is just a bucket posting. If you want to share your resume, you probably won't hear back unless we have a spot for you sometime in the near future. And transparency is everything. Like, transparency is giving people the knowledge that they need to say, okay, I still like this company. And I got to be honest, company says to me, hey, just so you know,
Yeah.
right? It would encourage me to apply than just a role that, like, I'm like, okay, I'm going to apply to another role and hope I hear from someone. If they're saying that, at least I know. It's like, have you ever been in a meeting, right? Like a big company meeting, and the CEO is talking, and the company's in trouble, right? I've
Yeah.
been in that where there's things going on, things aren't going well. Company lost some big contracts, whatnot. And you hear the CEO speak, and the CEO talks in circles,
Yeah.
gives a big, great speech and we're a powerful team and we're going to, blah, 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 we're, rallying the troops, all that BS, right?
Yeah.
And you wish, and you just want to scream in the meeting, but it would be embarrassing and you'd probably get fired. Tell the truth. Just be transparent, because you know what? If you're transparent and that same CEO says, listen, we're in trouble and we need to fix it. So help us fix it. Come up with ideas. If you have an idea, I don't care if you're, a junior associate or, a software engineer, whatever your title, help us fix these problems. Because I tell you what, if you give that transparency, your people become so loyal and they want to help you and they want to contribute and they want to help solve the problems. And that's when magic happens.
Yeah.
Right. When you give that air of mystery, like, yeah, there's something wrong, but we're not going to effing tell you. People are like, this is too vague. I don't like living in vague. I'm out of here. Right.
The worst part about vagueness is you think you're doing yourself a favor by being a little bit fluffy and but the problem is humans, for the most part, will assume the worst.
Yes.
So even if
1,000.
it's not as bad, and it's like, okay, we've got 6 months of runway. That might be a terrifying thing to tell your entire team. Like, we've got 6 months of runway. People are probably assuming we've got 2 weeks left. And they're going to act accordingly when you can say, okay, we're going to just be transparent about it. I know it's hard. It's easier said than done. I've not done it myself. But at the end of the day, and I've heard and talked to so many candidates where they were in transparent companies and cultures, and the way they spoke about those companies was always so crazy high. Like, they had the CEO and the executive leadership team. They held them in such high regard because they told the truth. They're just
they told the truth. Why is it so hard? I think that leaders in business need to understand, their people aren't babies, right? And if you say the company needs help, the company is having some hard times, then that says, how can I help? But if you leave people in that nebulous, vague, we know something's wrong, but you're not telling us, what's the first thing you're going to do? You are going to stop working, right? Because mentally you're freaked out. You're going to jump on your recruiter or your laptop, polish up your resume, send it out to everyone you know, apply to every job around. And people aren't going to work to solve the problem because they're so anxious. If you say, hey, there is a problem, I want your help solving it, people want to rally behind you. They want you to win. They want the company to win. And they want to be part of that.
Yeah, not everybody's going to rally around it, but you're going to get so much more from the people that do rally around it that it's going to, I can't sit here and say that it will offset it, but the outcome is going to be way better typically.
And guess what? So let's say if the people who don't rally around you, sometimes it may be just fear, right? Because they have families, they need job security, right? And they're like, oh my gosh, I got to start looking, because they're worried, and that's okay. But those same people will still know they didn't screw me over. They were very transparent. They let me know. And those same people a year from now, when things are better, hopefully they're better, will come back. Those boomerang people are some of the best, right? Because they didn't leave because they wanted to. They left for whatever reason, and they came back. And that says a lot about you as an organization, right? And I think that's a big thing. But yeah, that was my big thing today, was just like seeing these poor candidates who have gotten this impression that like there's all this crazy shadiness going on, and it's not. To me, it's just stupidity. It's a lack of honestly thinking outside the box and doing something new, or just like we were talking about, just being clear and transparent. These evergreen job posts, I think, are making recruiters look bad, right? Because I think a lot of recruiters are like, well, I'm supposed to put this up so we can get resumes for this software engineering role that might open, next quarter. And I can't, if I reject them, then I can't go back to these candidates later and say, hey, so they don't say anything.
Yeah.
And it's, and again, it's like, be transparent, or call the dude and say, hey, you're amazing. But I don't have anything right now. But then you're in that same boat. Well, they're going to be like, well, then why did you post a job? So there's that transparency again.
Yeah.
Put that on there. And if you don't get the applicants don't worry, because you will when you need the role,
Yeah.
right? Because you're just letting them sit there while they go find another job. You come back 3 months later, they're going to be gone. So it's a self-fulfilling prophecy that it's
Yeah.
not going to work.
And in most ATSs, if not all of them, you can put it in the job. Like every ATS has the ability to like put it in the job description. You can put it in the title.
Yeah.
Future role for, we're hiring this role to
Yes.
be hired in, whatever. Make it stupid and long, but at least you're communicating if you think that's a helpful strategy. If you just want to like put out the net and just see what comes through, great. But
Yeah.
there's no real, it like, to say that people like, I don't know any company that's like hired someone through that model and was like, oh my goodness, if we didn't do that, that like
Yes.
they would have
Thank
found
you.
that candidate would have found your company anyways,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. And the only other time I see a lot of evergreen posts is for really high turnover roles, right? They're the role nobody wants, that, or nobody can last in, right? For whatever reason.
Yeah.
And it's just perpetually posted.
Yeah.
And again, it's like, I think you need to look inward, maybe fix whatever is going on there with these particular jobs that have such high turnover. Because is it the people you're hiring? No, it's probably you. You know,
Yeah.
like, come on.
Yeah. What's
But yeah,
what's the hardest role you've worked on? Like, what's the one that comes to your mind? Like, I'm just curious, like you've, from recruiter to recruiter, like there's always one that kind of sticks out, or a few that stick out of like, oh, that was really hard. And
gosh. So I love recruiting crazy roles. The first, like, I would say the weirdest role I ever recruited, this is not maybe the hardest, it was the weirdest,
okay, yeah,
was early in my career, I was at a tech staffing firm, and, you know, where we were hiring .NET and Java developers and sending them to go work at Wells Fargo and all this stuff. And we had acquired a small recruiting firm. I think it was in Michigan. They did tech, but they also did like a lot of manufacturing and other jobs. Like they basically, obviously, they're going to take what comes to what comes their way. Who wouldn't? It's business. And so my very first recruiting job was at a traditional engineering firm, right? Mechanical, electrical, power and light. And I learned so much in that job. So when I got into tech right thereafter, nobody else that I worked with had any kind of skill set with manufacturing or engineering, whatever. And so this company they acquired had this super weird role in Alaska where they were looking for a fish house smoke manager. And in freaking Alaska, I'm like, and the
oh my
manager
god,
who knows, like, I like the weird stuff. He was like, Hilary,
this
what you
one's for
doing?
you. Oh my
It's like,
god,
uh-oh. But it was actually like, you know, it was really fun to recruit on. And it was kind of then, you know, it was very early in my career. And I thought to myself, I can recruit anything.
yeah,
And I think the hardest roles to work on for me are not really what you're looking for. It's who you're working with on the role.
yeah,
Right. So sometimes if, you know, it's hard to get hiring managers out of their own way. Right. Where you really need, like I've always found, to come with the data, right? And you know, in the old days, that was like hours of research on Google and finding hiring data analytics on this or that or da 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 da. But now you've got AI. You can come very well armed with the data. Obviously, check the data. You don't want to be like that lawyer who, you know, brought forth like phony claims of court cases from AI, idiot.
yep,
Because you will look very stupid, but
yep,
you know, make sure your data is correct, and you can go to a hiring manager and come with the numbers and say, okay, hey, like you want this engineer who, you know, has closure, right? Which is a very, you know, not a lot of people have closure, and you want them in Silicon Valley, and you only want to pay them this much, and there's only so many people available on LinkedIn, not even available, who exist on LinkedIn,
yeah,
who have this skill set. And you drill that down to California, here's what you have left. And you drill that down to the rate you're going to pay them versus other companies in your area or in your sector, you're not going to find them.
yeah.
So let's work around that. And then it's a different discussion because you are giving them the transparency of things that they don't know, right? Because if you're a busy hiring manager, sometimes you're like, yes, I need this, 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 and this, and I have to have it. And, I think that's the dread of every recruiter, right? So I always tell newer recruiters, come with your data. It's on you. It is on you as a recruiter. To me, you're not doing your job if you're not being transparent and honest. And I know that can be scary when it's not helping you as a recruiter, when you're telling them, no, basically, we can't do it this way because it's not going to work.
Yeah. And when you're in a situation with a hiring manager and you've got two options, right? You've got the option where you come to the table with data, or you come to the table with like an anecdote, like this role's super hard and I can't fill it, right? Versus like the relationship, if you don't have a relationship with that hiring manager, like that's the work you kind of have to do up front that doesn't get really talked about much. So I love this point that you're making on. So it's like, if you don't have the data and you just are just having conversations based on gut and feel and whatnot, like you kind of have to earn that with the hiring manager to a certain extent, or with the company, so that like you start off with like, do all the research up front, spend more time with a new hiring manager, especially because, at least for me as a recruiter, I get a sense from the rest of the company whether or not like, oh, this person's a really tough hiring manager. So ahead of time, right? So if you know ahead of time, why not just arm yourself with a little extra data and be like, hey, here's the research I did. This is what I'm seeing. What's worked well for you? And so then they're gonna like automatically respect you more because you've done the research. And then like you do that a few times, and then later on, like 3 months, you're working on a different role. Like, this search is really hard. They're gonna think back to like, how did you treat that hiring manager first?
Exactly.
Versus like, okay, you're like, okay, I have to push back on this person, and then they get the data. So you got to start.
Let's like use an example, right? You have Cassie the recruiter, and you have, I don't know, Jim the recruiter, right? And Cassie is the one who comes to you with all that data for the exact same role, and then you have Jim who's like, you know what? This is kind of hard. I can't find a lot of people, whatever. And let's say they're both contractors. Who is that hiring manager going to call again? Right? He's not calling Jim because Jim's a dodo, apparently. Right? He's going to call Cassie because Cassie was right on and really tried to work with him and get it done. And I think it's not about changing expectations so much with the hiring manager. I think it's about kind of changing the way they're thinking about their role, right? And really, like, if you're showing them that you are thinking outside the box, they're going to start thinking that way too, right? And they're going to be on your side. They're going to want you to win rather than, oh my God, this recruiter is useless, you know? And those are the people, I think, who become the leaders in their industries. Those are the people who are great at mentoring teams because they've all been there and they know how to do that. And those are the people, you see on LinkedIn posting stuff where you're like, wow, that's a great idea, and I think that there's a lot to be said for companies saying, oh, well, talent acquisition is a service part of the organization. Shouldn't we all be service parts of the organization?
Yeah.
Right? Shouldn't that be a standard that, we're not just serving others. Others should be serving us as well. That's what makes a cohesive team, right?
It's not a one-way
That's
street.
what breaks down silos. Exactly. Right. And you're not, recruiters who are kind of scared of their own shadow and just afraid, like, I'm imploring you to not be afraid, right? What's the worst that can happen if you come with the data and give them actual real information about the role they're hiring for? What's the worst that can happen? I'm going to say nothing but you being better at your job and gaining more respect, right?
Yeah. And to add to that, I think the thing that I love about recruiting that like always got me excited about it was just, it's fun looking for people and coming up with new ways. And so there's nothing really different in the activity. Like, you might think of like, oh, it's data. It's like a whole different thing. Either it's intimidating or it's not, like it's numbers and you don't want to crunch numbers and that's just not your persona kind of deal. Like that's kind of limiting to a certain extent. But if you think of the actual activity, it's like instead of a person, you're just looking for information. You're looking to find facts that back up your suspicion, which is like, hey, I
Right.
think I'm having a tough time. Maybe as you're going through all that data yourself, you solve the problem yourself, and you don't even need to go to the hiring manager because you're like, oh, this is my problem. Like that's a
Yeah.
very real possibility. Um, yeah, I guess in terms of, you've talked about a bit, like in terms of like AI and some of the
hmm
tools you use, I guess, what are there sort of like adjacent aspects of like AI, like obviously filtering up resumes to the top, like
hmm
that's a very obvious use of AI that's exciting, or even some of the coolest things about like what's happening in recruitment and talent acquisition right now isn't necessarily AI driven. Like you've got a pretty strong finger on the pulse. Like what's exciting for you from your perspective?
Well, you brought up AI. Why'd you do that to me? 'Cause now I want to talk about it again. So the thing is, okay, and this is, one thing I've noticed, like a lot of recruiters are still like getting a handle on how to use it, like what to use it for.
Yeah.
And I want to say that there is so much you can do. You need to learn how to prompt. You need to learn how to prompt correctly. I always talk to any language learning model like they're a 5-year-old, and you go step by step on what you want, right? If you throw up on the LLM on, whether it's ChatGPT or llama or whatever the heck you're using, generally it's going to affect the answers. So you do step by step. But here's the things that recruiters may not be thinking about, right? It's not about writing a job description. It is about so much more than that, right? So we were talking about, working with, let's say, a difficult hiring manager, right? You can actually, let's say you have, this email chain between you and, I don't know, Mary, who is just a hell demon fire hiring manager, right? You can actually take that information from those emails, and let's just say for the sakes of ethics, we take out the names and whatnot, and we plug that in, just cut and paste it in to your favorite LLM and ask to do a sentiment analysis on these two people. So you do one on yourself, you'll do one on Mary the demon. Anyway, you'll get back all the information that AI sees on how you can address Mary better, right? So it's going to give you their sentiment analysis on her, and then you can ask it now, how, as Hilary the recruiter, can I address Mary in a better way that it will resonate with her, and it will actually say, you know cut out the small talk, cut out the niceties, just give her the data, give her the deets, right? That's all she cares about. Be precise, be short, da 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 da, right? And you know you need to be a chameleon in recruiting. You
Yeah.
need to kind of work your way into how that hiring manager's mind is working and respond accordingly. And it will tell you how to do that. It will also tell you, okay, so I have this job description this hiring manager gave me. I have the sentiment analysis that I just got about this hiring manager. Um, I've got the candidate. How do I fit it all together, right? So you can actually take that job description. You can take that candidate's resume. You can ask AI what stands out in this candidate's resume that I can highlight in my submittal, and it will tell you. And then it will say, how can I use this information that you've highlighted that goes with job description and submit it to Mary in a way she'll respond to?
Yeah.
And it will tell you that too. And so all of a sudden, all that like kind of fear is taken out of it. And I will say again, check your work. Look at everything, make sure it's not saying anything incorrect or anything insane. And and then you can package it up to Mary in a way that saved you so much administrative time doing all that, right? And present it in a way that is very effective for her and is going to get your message across. In There's just so much. I know you don't wish, but I wish we had like 2 more hours because I could give you like a whole presentation on this.
No,
But
no.
there's just so much that I think a lot of recruiters aren't thinking about that they can do to their benefit and how it will help them with difficult hiring managers, how it's going to help them with difficult roles, right? You can even ask it, look at this job description, let's say closure is not, a language that a lot of people have. Is there something that is a good substitute to closure, right? Or go, or whatever it is. And it will tell you, it will say, this language, is probably the closest. You can also do your research, do your research, right? Especially tech recruiters, God darn, do your research. Find out how easy, you're asking me for weird language that not a lot of people have, or not a lot of people available have it or are interested. How hard is it to learn? And a lot of times you'll find out these languages aren't that hard to learn. If someone has already got do under the belt, they can learn a new language pretty quickly, right?
Yeah.
That's why they do what they do. They're good at it,
Those are some of the two of the most not most creative, but creative and simple ways
Mhm.
of using AI as a recruiter that I've heard. It's just so as you say it, I'm like, oh, that's obvious, but it's not. It's so
It's
it
not.
it's like we're just scratching the surface of how we're using it. And that example with using the sentiment analysis of the managers, I've almost gone to the nth degree anytime I'm using AI, and I overcomplicate stuff. But you're just like, no, help me out with this human interaction. I love it. It's
Exactly.
such a
Exactly. You
brilliant
can
way.
use
Yeah.
it. Yeah. And I did this. So I spoke in Austin, gosh, months ago over the summer, and it was all about AI and using it in talent acquisition. And you can even, I use my friend as an example. And I basically, you just got on his LinkedIn profile. I went into anything he posted, commented on, etc., right? Public information. I literally dragged it and copied all of it, as long as it would let me, right? So
Hmm.
I think it was like 60 interactions I got out of it. I plugged that into AI and I said, hey, how would give me sentiment analysis on Jim? His name is actually Jim DeLine. Um, and anyway, so it told me exactly the sentiment analysis. And I say, okay, here's my job description. And now what would be the most effective way to address Jim to get him interested in this
Yeah.
job? And so I plugged it in and it said, he's loyal. He's very excited about what he does. He works in sports tech. He's a product guy. And this is what we think will excite him about the role. Right. And so you can actually have it point out to you, this is what is exciting Jim about what he does. And this is how you as a recruiter can reach out to him about a new role and what might get him excited.
Yeah.
And that's the magic, right? That's the magic, because sometimes, you can just be clueless, right? Sometimes it's hard, and think of the time it would take to scroll through all those posts yourself, trying to get a handle on who someone is.
You're going in completely in the dark with nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Typically, it's like, oh, they've got the keywords on their profile, right? Pre-AI, it's like you've got the keywords on their profile. You're going to connect with them. Maybe you see something on their LinkedIn profile, one thing. You're just like, what's the one thing that I think I can tie to this conversation? And it's like, oh, I see you went to so-and-so university, and then maybe they didn't really even like it there, right? Whereas you've used one data point in comparison to 20 data points or even 50 data points that you don't even think about when
Yeah.
it does the analysis. So no, it's again, why I guess this is more of help solve the world's problems, Hilary. Um I don't but why do you think it's that people are just really scratching the surface as opposed to actually getting into the nitty-gritty?
Um, I think it's about want, right? What are you hoping to get out of it? Do you care if you're getting anything out of it, right? I think I've always been that person. I love technology. I love learning new things. I would have been a software developer in another life. I would have loved that career. Um, but I went into art, so therefore I'm a recruiter. But seriously, I have a degree in painting. Hello, here I am.
I
But
love
what
them.
I'm
These are yours in the background?
Well, this one is actually Miguel Paradis, these beautiful green birdies. He's amazing. This one is actually mine. And if we go over here, that one is Roy Lichtenstein and the one above it. So the bluebirds are mine. I have others sitting here. So starving artist. I had some shows in New York and Chicago early on, and then I realized I like money, so I started recruiting. When someone said, "Hey, have you ever thought about being a recruiter?" And I said, "No, tell me more." Um, and here we are.
That's wild.
Where were we? What were we talking about?
I mean, we were talking about recruitment.
Oh yeah, and
I'm
solving the
still,
world's problems.
yeah, no, solving.
I think it's about want, right? Like I've always been a seeker of knowledge. I've always wanted. I'm about optimization. I'm about let's make our lives easier. I hate administrative tasks. I hate them.
You hate admin.
So it's a way to help cut down on so much administrative time, if not anything else. And I know a lot of recruiters, like they're fast movers. They don't like documentation. They don't like doing that. All right, fine. Have AI do it for you.
Yeah.
Right. Take your notes, spit them into AI and said, organize these so I can put them in bullet points for documentation in my ATS, or organize them so I can send them to a hiring manager and correct the grammar and all my misspellings, right? Like it will do so much for you. I think that take the time and learn about it. It's honestly, from a user perspective, it's not hard. You just need to take the time.
Yeah.
It's not hard. It's honestly, the more you use it, the more you're going to learn, and you're going to dive right in and be amazing at it. So yeah, that's my take. And yeah.
What's the one thing or few things that you're not ready to let AI do for you yet at all? Like you have no, like if AI is a person, it's just like, no. This is my space. You don't touch this. This is.
I don't let AI write for me. I when I post on LinkedIn, wherever, it is my words, right? I will use AI to get ideas. I love to brainstorm with it, right? Because sometimes I'm just thinking, I can't think of a topic. I want to talk about something, but it's just not hitting my brain. And so I'll be like, give me a list of recruiting topics. Give me a list of relevant people topics, analytics, whatever you want to talk about. And it will actually say, and you're like, oh, that's a great topic, right? And then you can go from there. It's just helpful on that level. I don't like the way AI writes. And I think that will change, and it's going to get better. I think a lot of that has to do with the fact also that I'm a writer myself, right? So I like to use my own words, and I don't know. I've had AI, I'm like, okay, I wrote my own post, and I'm like, okay, rewrite this for me. Okay. Also, they always make it like twice as long, and right. And like they include so many like extraneous words you don't need to say the same thing. Right. And they'll use like really like crazy words. Right. Like, this is a stupendous finding, and things like that. And you're like, oh yeah, that sounds just like me.
Yeah.
I'm more likely to say this is a stupid finding, right? But but like what I'm trying to say is I need to have control over that piece. And because there's something to be said when you as a human are putting it in your own words. And it's funny, right? Because like a lot of recruiters and companies complain about people responding to application questions with AI, right? Their responses are clearly made with AI.
Yeah.
And I did a post about this, I don't know, a month ago or something. And I said, I don't care. You want an AI to write your answer, go ahead, but do yourself a favor and rewrite it in your own words.
Yeah.
Didn't your parents tell you that when you were plagiarizing in high school? Rewrite it in your own words. If you're going to use ChatGPT for school, rewrite it in your own words, right? It's just, to me, it's common sense, right? And if you're not even willing to do that, then just probably don't apply.
Well, it's interesting because you set yourself up for failure, because if someone gets excited about your profile based on answers that you didn't even do yourself, and then they start talking to you, there's just like this, this doesn't even match. Like I was excited about the person on paper, not just on like if especially even in just communications, right? Like oftentimes I find that people with the longest resume with the most information, and this is pre-GPT, so it's a little bit harder now, but people with super long like resumes, when I would talk to them, this is going to be a 45-minute phone screen instead of a 15-minute. Like you could just tell. But then when you have the short, snappy one pager, like, okay, I'm going to have to push this person for answers because there's so much. They're
I'll
just
be honest. If you're a senior professional, I completely disagree with one-page resumes. I think it's whoever came up, whoever was the a-hole who said, "Oh, one-page resume is the rule," like needs to be punched in their own face. Like it is seriously so dumb. Who can like put their entire career on one page and expect anyone to really know what they do in a meaningful way?
yeah.
Like I don't care. If you have a 3-page resume and you've been doing this for 20 years, I'm fine with that. I could care less, right? You have, I did have, so this is a long time ago. I was working at a Microsoft consulting firm, and a friend of mine, her husband, she's like, he's really good at what he does, but he can't get a job. He had a 14-page resume, 14 pages. And I was like flummoxed. And here's the thing, he didn't know how to write a resume. So, and that's the thing. And I wish recruiters would think of this. A lot of regular people who aren't in our field don't know how to write a resume, and I would always go for the software engineers that had really crappy resumes, because I was like, you know what? If I'm a really good software engineer, I'm probably going to be really crappy at writing a resume. So I would go after them because I know nobody else was calling this person, and they would be phenomenal. And it's like, I don't know. I don't want to get off on a tangent about that, but feel free to write a longer resume. One page is stupid, 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 stupid.
Yeah, it doesn't.
If you're a junior out of college, you give me more than one page, I'll kill you.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. No, yeah, there's very much like your background. There's such a, you were talking about like the company that you were working with on the rare disease, and you're like the table, everybody's so smart at the table. I'm like, by far probably the most exciting person at the table because of all the extra stuff that you do. And
I'm definitely the loudest and most energized. I think this was like 2 weeks ago. We had our weekly meeting, and I said, I'm sorry, because everyone is like so smart and like kind of quiet. I'm like, I must just exhaust you because I'm that loud. I'm the devil's advocate. I'm the one who's just the loudest in the room. And Renee, who is just amazing, and she said to me, it's honestly really refreshing. And I'm like, thank you. Finally. Finally, I get the respect. But yeah, really, really wonderful, smart people. And I'm just really excited about where that's going. So it's going to help. It's going to help a lot of people. And I get to be cool and be at a biotech company.
Yeah, and that's doing stuff on the blockchain as well. Like I spent a bit of time in crypto, and that's a whole other space. And
that is a whole other space. And I think that would be, and I'm sure they're out there somewhere, but a wonderful like training course for recruiters is to learn crypto recruiting, right? Because it's very nebulous. I mean, I think there's a lot of people who still like really don't understand how the blockchain works. They certainly don't know anything about like decentralized platforms or L3 or, NFTs, right? Like they don't get it. It's hard to understand because it is not a tangible thing. It's almost like some people don't make great tech recruiters because like code is not tangible. It's not something you can hold in your hands, right? They might make great engineering recruiters, right? Like traditional engineering, because they're creating something tangible, like, a car or a piece of machinery or something that you can see and feel and touch, right?
Yeah.
And the world of tech is nebulous in that way to someone who doesn't visualize like that. They can't get it. And so I think if like a big crash course, the best thing I ever did was I had 2 recruiters with minimal tech experience, and I put them through this tech boot camp recruiting thing. And I went through it too. I needed a refresher myself, and it was amazing. And I'm like, everyone should be doing this, like every recruiter, right? And it clarifies things that people who don't understand it don't understand. Like, they didn't understand the difference between, a platform and a database and a language, and like just helping them get those things clarified opened up more windows for more discovery. And I
Yeah.
think that's the same with some of these really complex industries as such as crypto and blockchain.
The kind of riffing off of your idea previously was like, this is a great use case for AI, right? Where
Hmm.
it's like, okay, I'm recruiting for a crypto role. I know nothing about
Yes.
it. Explain it into, and just choose the way that I learn is like, I'm a huge metaphor analogy person, right? And just tell it to be like, teach me about, you know, programming, but as if it were Game of Thrones, right? And then
Yes.
all the examples are gonna like sink in your brain, like, okay, so like this is this and then this is that, and you just making connections. So like for Game of Thrones, that would work for me. I'm a fan of it. I'll watch the show, right? But like choose whatever like analogy, or like even say like what are some good analogies
Yeah.
based on what you know about me, right? Because it obviously knows about us if you've been using it enough. Like based on what you know about me, what are some helpful analogies that you could give to me that like resonate with me that I would understand really well, and then just teach me about this thing. Like I did that previously when I first got into like tech recruiting. I would just sit down with engineers and I would be like, let's go for coffee. I want to learn about what you do. It's so
Yeah.
complicated, blah, blah, blah. And that was super helpful to me. One things that was the most helpful was by actually talking to junior developers. It was
Hmm.
actually more helpful to me because they were still so close to like, I'm not going to
Learn,
call it.
like, yeah, like learning it. Yeah.
Yeah, they were still like, it was like they could bring it closer back to reality where it's like, if you've been a developer for 20 years, it's like you're stuck in the jungle and like you come back to like
Yeah.
mainland and like everybody's just like, oh yeah, this is how I make food. And they're like, what? Like
But
it just doesn't translate as much, right?
exactly, exactly. Yeah. And um, it's just one of those things, like, tech is obviously ever changing, as is like blockchain, the speed of light, right? I mean, look at AI. It's like I swear every week there's some new big thing happening or whatever. And it really is like, I think it's got to be continual learning on our own behalf, right?
Mm-hmm.
You really, really like just need to learn and really need to stretch yourself to stay relevant, to stay active. I will tell you, gosh, so this was, I want to say 4 or 5 months ago, I was consulting for a company that was hiring a TA manager. And um, I interviewed a lot of wonderful people, right? And they were looking for very specific skills in performance marketing. And I talked to one candidate, and she was explaining to me what Boolean recruiting was. And I think she thought she was a lot older than me, which I was probably older than her, but I wasn't going to share that because she was talking to me like I was, 20 years old. And she was explaining to me what Boolean was. And she's like, yeah, that and all the other, innovative best practices in recruiting. And I'm like, oh, like, what else do you really like to do? And she was like, oh, I like using X-ray and things like that. And I'm like,
Kind of dusty.
tell me more, right? And it's like I couldn't get any of that stuff out of her. That was the, tell me about using AI, tell me about, you know um just how you work with candidates, your sense of urgency. And the most, like, anything like that was, and the only thing she could bring to me was Boolean. And I'm like, dude, that was around before I became a recruiter. That was a long time ago.
Yeah.
I'll never tell. But long story short, it's like I'm like thinking to myself, oh, she's kind of become her own dinosaur. You
Yeah.
know, she'd been kind of in her own world consulting for small companies and not really like, going out and grabbing AI and figuring it out and all these things. And it's like you just have to constantly educate yourself, right? You
Yeah.
just got to keep doing it. And besides, now you can go to your language learning model of choice and give them a job description and say, hey, write me a Boolean string for this.
Yeah. Yeah.
So much easier, and probably more accurate.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, just keep learning. I want to learn, right? I feel like it will prevent me from getting Alzheimer's at a certain age. Probably not, but like we can hope, right?
Yeah. It's there's so many angles with it. There's so much potential with it. And you've clearly like carved a amazing path in the recruitment space. I would be shocked if you like if we talked 5-10 years from now and you're like not still recruiting, because I think once you dig it, you dig it. Like you're
Yeah,
doing it in some fashion.
it's yeah, it's that I'm the person, like my husband, I'm lucky enough to work from home, and I'm the person my husband has to pull off the computer at, like, he's like, honey, 7 o'clock, get off the damn computer. And when I was in an office, I would be the person who would work. I always use the excuse that I'm avoiding traffic, but really it was just like, I'm getting stuff done,
Yeah.
and I am always like, why put it off for tomorrow when I can do it today and I don't have to worry about it. I don't like taking work home with me mentally or otherwise.
Yeah.
And I think that I'm just that person that wants to do it all and has figured out a way in some areas to do that. So I think it's just about who you are. And when I see recruiters who have that drive and that, like, I want to do it, I want to know it, I want to learn it, I want to kill myself to get this job filled, and like, those are the ones I'm like, this person in 10-15 years is going to be a leader. They're going to be somebody that is going to be on a podcast like this and speaking at events. And I remember sitting in that individual contributor chair saying to myself, I want to be that person. How do I do that? Because it took me a long time to want to get into management. My husband was like, why don't you be a manager? I'm like, I don't want that. Ugh,
Yeah.
But like it, and I think a lot of that was insecurity on my own part. And then I, started off in my career talking to very high level people in tech, and I would be intimidated. And I remember I had one in-person interview, and the poor guy, like, he was this very senior level guy. He was so nervous in the interview, like, I thought he was going to throw up.
Yeah.
And he's talking to little old me. And I felt so bad for him. And that is, I think, the moment that I realized people are just people.
Yeah.
They're just people. And we all have our really big pluses and our minuses and everything else. And I think when that hit me, it's when I realized I do want to be a manager, because I feel like I would be better than a lot of people. And I always said, if I started my own podcast, it would be called You're Doing It Wrong.
Oh, nice. Have you started it?
Obnoxious, but nice.
Have you started it? Is it in the works?
No, God, no.
You've got enough on the go.
I don't know that anybody wants to hear my voice for that long.
No, I'm get out of here. This was a really cool conversation. I really appreciated your insights. I learned a ton. I've got some tips, and you said, like, you don't want to hear me go on for 2 hours. Like, we got to do another one. Give it, like, I'll tap you on the shoulder on LinkedIn, or
we'll just do a weekly one.
Weekly, there you go. Yeah, you don't have to start the podcast. We could just call it, like, here's another episode of You're Doing It Wrong. We'll get the AI to make the logo, and it'll be yours, right? I'll record it and send it back to you. There you go.
That's another thing. Use AI for your employer branding. Oh my God, I have created some of the most beautiful employer branding that I had to create myself because of my art background, right? But when AI came along, guess what? Oh my God, beautiful, branded. It looks like the company actually made this, right? Like, it's just so freaking fabulous. I don't know why everybody stop using clip art. Just stop. That's another one of those smack yourself in your own face. If you're using clip art of any kind in your employer branding, right? Where you see, like, every denomination of person and one person in a wheelchair, like, sitting there going, let's talk about our culture. And then you look at the picture and you're like, I have seen this picture before on someone else's website. It's like, use your own people, first of all, and then like create really cool branding, create cool branding with AI. And people, like, that's another thing. People don't know how to do it. Figure it out. I will help you. Ping me. I will help you make amazing employer branding. I will show you how. You don't even have to pay me.
Yeah.
Well, maybe that would be nice, but you don't have to. It'll be a quick lesson.
There you go. Awesome. No, Hilary, thank you so much for the time today.
Oh gosh, thank you. It has been wonderful, Martin. I really appreciate it. And you have way more pictures than me on your wall. Are those record covers?
Those are record covers. Yeah. Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah. I've got some Led Zeppelin. I got some Queens of the Stone Age. I got some Jamie XX. I got everything. No country yet, but we'll get there.
All right. Very cool. Awesome. So great talking to you.
Yeah. Do you want people to get in touch with you? I mean, they know your name so they can find you, but what's the best way for folks to get in touch with you if they resonated or want to get an AI lesson
I would say just ping me on LinkedIn, Hilary Wagner. You'll see the blonde hair, and just ping me, reach out to me, and love to talk.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
All right. Thanks so much, Mark.